Greetings friends, this is Hamilcar with Hamilcar Gaming, and I'm here with my second installment as part of my series on how to be a better player, and specifically this section is talking about character creation and how to put depth into your character. Now I've already discussed in a previous video some different methods people use for coming up with a basic idea for their character. The next thing I want to talk about is establishing a personality for your character. Now in the previous video I talked about my method, that it actually makes it a little bit easier for me because that's the main focus for my inspiration for a character, is to start with the personality. And when I say personality, what I really mean is how you expect to roleplay them. Now, something that I've noticed over the years with lots of different parties with people of different experience is that most new players typically play themselves, which I think is perfectly fine. If you're not comfortable with some of the social aspects or the improv aspects or the role-playing aspects of a role-playing game, it's a good place to get your feet wet and at least you're in your comfort zone. And I think that's perfectly fine. Sometimes, especially when I first started, I was simply Hamilcar in fantasy or sci-fi setting. And I think that's a good place to start. I think that as players get a little bit more experience with role-playing, and they're maybe on their second or third character, what happens is you realize that you want your characters to be different. And so one of the ways you can do that is by having a unique personality for them. Now, what I have seen is and I will admit that I'm not talented enough to do this. There are some people out there, and usually they're actors, voice actors, or people who have a lot of practice with public speaking. They will try to be something that they really aren't. And I actually find that exceedingly difficult to keep up over the length of a campaign. So what that would be is that if I tried to say, I'm going to role play as something that is not really an aspect of who I am or what I believe, you can do it. And oftentimes GMs will do it for NPCs. I mean, I don't consider myself villainous, but I'll often get on the mindset of some villains in order for the sake of the story. But the problem is that when you do that over the long term, what usually happens is unless you've got a real talent for it, is it won't stay consistent. You'll do this personality that doesn't really fit you, and then other moments you'll kind of fall out of character, and it won't be very consistent. And what you'll find, and what I've found, is that it makes it where I don't really enjoy the character as much. So my suggestion for more of those intermediate players who are trying to determine a personality is to take something of yourself and stick it as the forefront. So typically, human beings, we're a big mix of a lot of different things. And at any given time, you can say that you are a lot of different things or believe a lot of different things. And so what I think is take something about yourself, something about your personality. In my previous video, I talked about having a character that was kind of eccentric and a little boisterous and wanted to be the center of attention. I also talked about one who was kind of a prankster or trickster or things like that. Those are things I have been known to do to family and coworkers and people like that. But in those examples, those characters would take that aspect and make it the pinnacle or forefront of their character. Now, I would then try to build depth around that and say, okay, if that's what they focus on, they're still going to have aspects of them that make them feel human and real, but they're going to push that piece of me further than I would in real life. There are certain boundaries I wouldn't cross even if I wanted to play some jokes, but maybe my trickster illusionist might go ahead and do that. And what happens is that I'm able to create something that feels unique, but I can still keep it up. I can keep playing it because it's really just a part of my personality that I have decided to put at the forefront. So when I'm role-playing and I'm in that moment, I'm with other people and I'm talking to NPCs or working with the GM or even just party banter, it's not difficult to continue to role-play as your character. And the truth is, if you do slip and kind of just role-play as yourself, then it's almost like, well, that's just yourself is probably just a shade of that character's personality. Now, it may be skewed one way or the other, but it's not, it doesn't feel so strange because there's not a huge juxtapose where it's so different. Whereas if you had chosen to be something that you really aren't, it becomes very blaringly obvious. So that's my suggestion for personality. I think this is something that's actually worth thinking about early in your character design before you even put anything down on a piece of paper, any stats, any numbers, or anything like that. That if you've thought about some of this information about your concepts and about your personality for your character. To be honest, I feel like that the character sheet almost writes itself once you've gone through a lot of these exercises. Well, I hope this helps. I hope that it gives you some insight and can help you on designing your next Dungeons & Dragons character to feel a little deeper, a little bit more dynamic and fun to play. Thanks.